I want to do a segment today on gay marriage in a different context than the one that we did on yesterday's program. On yesterday's show, I talked about the political ramifications of Obama's endorsement, why he's doing it, how foot in the mouth Joe Biden forced him to deal with this issue earlier than he wanted to, and whether or not it's going to help or hurt Obama in the election campaign. Everybody knows that American attitudes on gay marriage are changing. Every year the polls show greater support for it. But it's still clearly a minority issue in the United States. Even in liberal states, most polls show opposition to allowing gays to marry. The flip side of that, as I acknowledged, is that most of the people who care about gay marriage a lot, in other words, for whom it's a big issue, are the ones that are in favor of it. The people opposed to gay marriage is usually issue number 17 on their priority list, as opposed to those that are in favor of it, it's way higher on the list. What we didn't really do is focus a lot on whether this is good public policy in the United States. And I want to do this here for a moment. Is it a good idea? And I don't think it is. What the supporters of gay marriage have managed to do is imply that you're a bigot if you don't think that gay people should be allowed to marry one another. We make all sorts of laws that restrict what people can and cannot do. That doesn't mean that you're somebody who's bigoted against the individuals who are prohibited from doing something. It's my argument that there is no benefit to society but all sorts of downsides if we allow gay marriage to be considered legal and sanctioned under the law. As it is, gays are marrying all over the United States. They hold their ceremonies. The New York Times, when you read the New York Times Sunday wedding section, half the marriages in there seem to be of gay people. That's an exaggeration, but not that big of a one. Giving this special legal protection and sanction serves no public policy purpose. Secondly, the laws of a country have to be based, at least in part, on the dominant values in a country. And the dominant value in the United States is still that most people don't want gays to marry. I understand that there are a whole lot of religions that are embracing gay marriage. Christian religions that apparently no longer believe that the Bible says what the Bible says. And I understand that this thing is evolving. But I don't think it's good public policy in the United States. Now, as I said in yesterday's show, politically, what Obama is counting on is that the people who agree with what I just said don't care about the issue. Okay, gays shouldn't marry, but do I really care at all? But he's the guy that's decided to put this thing out there. Whether it was intended to happen this year or next year isn't the point. The president of the United States says he's going to use the platform of the White House to advocate acceptance of the notion of gay marriage. And I think at the very least he ought to be taken on his own terms on this. Mitt Romney says he's against it. Barack Obama says he's for it. So I'm going to throw it out there. Who's right? Do you agree with Romney that marriage should be between a man and a woman? Or do you agree with Obama that couples of any sex should be able to marry? 414-799-1130 is the phone number. The miracle-homes.com toll-free line is 1-800-838-9476. One other point on this before I take calls. One of the things that's happened in America is that the left has told us that we have to stop being so judgmental, that we should allow people to do whatever they want to do, which is kind of a libertarian concept. However, they are the ones that want to be judgmental of virtually any kind of behavior that they don't approve of. They're the ones that are always saying that this, that, or the other thing is unacceptable or bigoted, that this is hate speech, that you can't do this, that you can't do that. When anybody, however, demands that we uphold at least some level of traditional standards, they claim that their judgmentalism is somehow wrong and becomes bigoted. I think that that's a good point that I rarely hear anybody make. Anyway, we're going to take calls on this. We don't have any calls on this, huh? I never know anymore what people are going to call about and what they're not going to call. I really don't. That used to be one of my strengths as a talk show host. Every now and then I'll do a topic where I'm convinced nobody's going to call in, like the French elections turning towards the French electing a socialist government. Phones rang off the hook on that. Then, yeah, should two guys be able to marry and nobody else? Things surprise me more and more and more. News Talk, 1130 WISN, Mark Belling, late afternoon show. The forecast of Fox 6's Justin Zolich. Fair skies tonight with a low of 47. Tomorrow, sun early, then giving way to some afternoon clouds. There's a chance of showers and thunderstorms around or after sunset. Should get into the mid-70s, inland 74. Cooler than that at the lake, somewhere in the 60s. Saturday, slight chance of showers very early, partly to mostly cloudy. High around 64. Sunday, nice day, sun and a few clouds. High of 68 degrees. I'm taking the Obama issue right on its terms. Is he right? Is it time for us to legalize gay marriage and give gay and lesbian couples the right to marry under the same terms as a man and a woman? And I say the answer to that is no. For a zillion different reasons, including the fact that you never want to allow the laws of your nation to get ahead of where the collective sense of morality of the nation is. When we get to the point where 75 to 80% of Americans think that it's a good idea, then fine, maybe we ought to do it. But we're not there right now. There's no upside that I can see to society in it. There's no advantage in doing it. There's some costs in doing it. So what's the reason that we have to do it, and what's the reason that we spit upon the traditional values that have existed in this country for over 230 years in which we didn't allow gay couples to marry? We've allowed, since the beginning of the United States history, men and women to marry and nobody else. How has that not worked out for us? What's the problem here that exists that we see that we have to change, either socially, morally, or otherwise? Steve on the north side, you're on News Talk 1130 WISN.
Mark, you said it perfectly. This is not a new issue like environmentalism or the pipeline or whatever. I'm with Romney because this goes to the core of the history of the American family. You meddle with this and you're starting to meddle with one of the original pillars of American society. We do this, and who knows where we go from here. I'm totally with Romney.
Well, you mentioned the family. We've abandoned the traditional American family. I don't even know if that it's the norm anymore. Mom and dad and kids with both parents that are still living together. Now, then we moved to a lot of divorced families, which we've been able to cope with. Then we allowed gay couples to start to adopt. Now you want to give family status to any people, apparently, who decide that they want to be a family. Well, then what does the term mean? Should family merely be something that anybody gets to say that they are? And it begs a lot of other questions about what's wrong then with polygamy, or what's wrong with three guys marrying and declaring themselves a family. At some point, you have to come back to remember that marriage does grant special legal status. There's all sorts of protections and privileges, including a tax break that you get if you're married. You've got to ask yourself, what's the advantage of changing this definition, and also whether or not the legal definition that we have has any moral implications. And the morality of the country still, I think, is that allowing gays to marry is wrong, or polls wouldn't show the results that they have. And I think it's dangerous whenever politicians decide that they're going to put their morality in front of the law. Now, you always hear liberals say that we shouldn't be legislating morality. Well, if not, what's this? This is their legislating their morality.
It's eliminating one of the key pillars to society. So many things are defined through the family. And like you said, hey, me and my dog, we feel like getting together. Give us a tax break.
Well, I mean, and they would argue that a dog isn't a human being, and we're talking about basic human rights. But we bar all sorts of people from being able to do certain things for all sorts of good reasons. It's the same reason that when you have a man and a woman who are in a relationship but choose not to get married are treated differently under the law. There's all sorts of reasons that we make these distinctions. They also can't come up with an answer to what terrible problem that the United States is facing that this is fixing. Thanks for the call. The political discussion I had yesterday, this is just one more way that Barack Obama introduces some issue other than his miserable job performance and turns it into an issue in the campaign. I'm not really focused on the politics right now as to whether or not it's a good idea. And just simply saying we shouldn't be denying to some people what others are able to do is a non-argument. Should everybody be able then to possess a gun, including felons, including children? No, we've come up with reasons why certain people cannot. People who have mental problems are not allowed to have the same gun ownership rights in society that people who don't have them. We make that distinction. There's a zillion distinctions that we make. People who drive drunk aren't allowed to get driver's licenses after they've been convicted 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. There's distinctions you make everywhere in society about all sorts of things.